So, very good evening to all of you. We welcome you all to this discussion today on livelihoods. Before we begin this conversation, for those who are joining us for the first time, I would just like to give a very brief introduction about New Socia and why are we doing this conversation. So, New Socia is a strategic CSR design and impact advisory organization. We dream of a society where every actor is socially responsible. And to make that happen, or rather to enable that to happen, our academy vertical is bringing these episodes on Facets of Impact, a conversation series where we celebrate and bring forth interesting models of social entrepreneurship and those which stand away from the conventional functionings of the society, each of which is tackling some unique aspects of the fundamental needs of the society, like livelihood, environment, healthcare, education, and with the intention of creating widespread change, positive change in the society. So, in the last week, we had in the Phases of Impact webinar, we had interacted with ChangeMakers in the education space, and you may check out that conversation at our YouTube channel. During our conversation, please feel free to open the discussions in the chat box and ask questions to the panelists who will be taking it during the Q&A session. So today's conversation on livelihood, we have some very inspiring change makers amongst us who are tackling challenges in the livelihood space. And I was mentioning before, it's really a ambitious task to really discuss about topic on livelihoods, which is a very, very deep subject. However, we'll try and see how much we can cover in the next 1 hour. This session will be moderated by Anirban Gupta. He is the co-founder and strategic advisor of Dhriti, which is a national level non-profit promoting entrepreneurship as a solution to poverty alleviation and socio-economic progress in our country. I'm very pleased to welcome you, Anirban. I also welcome all the panelists, and I request Anirban to take this session forward.
Thank you, Manju, and, uh, and a very warm welcome to all the participants, attendees who are here, and to the panelists. Today we have a wonderful set of panelists, and I was talking to Manju that such variety and such variety in the kind of aspects of work that they are into, and also from the perspective of the age group, So there's a nice variety. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation. So just putting certain things into perspective when we talk of livelihoods, the word livelihoods and the sector itself has gone through a lot of churning over the years. Initially, it was the narrative was more towards income generation activities. Then the narrative changed towards livelihoods, and then with the SDGs coming in, a lot of talk about sustainable livelihoods was initiated. Over a period of time, that livelihoods has been now being categorized into entrepreneurship, skilling, and different aspects of work. Entrepreneurship further is being looked at as mass entrepreneurship or people's entrepreneurship and various. So the sector in itself, as Manju you were saying, has expanded massively, and the relevance has also expanded massively. However, initially the focus was more on poverty and low income, how to take from low income to high income. But since the SDGs came into play, the aspects of vulnerability, social exclusion, geographical marginalization, so these aspects also became a very important part when it was defined as sustainable livelihood. So each of the participants here, each of the panelists here, bringing a very different perspective and a very different point of view to the livelihoods debate, and I really look forward to hearing from all of you. So if I could introduce the panelists, Pooja Kaul is the co-founder of Organico, a social enterprise based in India that utilizes donkey milk to produce skincare products. बहुत कम ही लोग होंगे, but there will be very few people who would be very happy to know, oh, गधा है आसपास. So, so I think that's fantastic, very innovative, I must say, and looking forward to hear from you. Inir Pinheiro has been a long time friend, and I just love him as a person. He's the founder and managing director of Grassroots, a socially minded rural tourism company connecting the urban world with the India's off-grid villages, tribes, and people. So happy to have you here, Inir, and look forward to hear from you. Also with us is Mayura Balasubramanian. Mayura is the founder and CEO of Craftisan Foundation, a social enterprise that focuses on craft-based livelihoods for traditional artisans as well as marginalized communities. I have been hearing Mayura for some time, and I really like the perspectives that she brings in. So looking forward to hear from you, Mayura. Also with us is Ketan. Ketan is the is the founder and CEO of Friends Union for Energizing Lives, Fuel. Fuel is engaging in providing career counseling and assistance, scholarships, skill building of youth across the country. So from livelihood, looking at livelihoods, entrepreneurship, tourism, skilling, we have a fantastic panel here. And how I would like to plan this is would be that if I could give you more time to talk about yourself, introducing yourselves, your work, the social enterprise that you've built, and the challenges that you have been tackling. If you could take around 5 minutes each in this part of the discussion, we will further move on to what you're doing presently as a part of the COVID situation, and what are you looking at in the future. There we will give a little lesser time to each one of you, so that. But I am pretty sure that most of the attendees here want to listen to more from you people. So may I ask Mayura to begin and let us know more about what you've been doing and you as a person as well. Yeah.
Sure. And thank you for the wonderful introduction. Hello, everyone. As far back as I can remember, I've always been passionate about crafts. When I was in school, my mom used to pick me up straight from school and drag me in my school uniform to a lot of craft exhibitions. And over time, I developed an equally strong passion for crafts as she did. And I used to spend every summer vacation in some sort of a craft summer workshop and things like that. And I think even at home, there was a strong exposure to crafts. Even when we traveled, we used to do a lot of off the beaten track travel. And cut then to many years later, when I had the opportunity to work with the United Nations Development Program on a national rural tourism project, which was working on craft and culture-based livelihoods. So that was my first on-ground exposure to development work in India, to village communities. And I realized that crafts is such a huge part of rural economy. After agriculture, it's handicrafts and handlooms that are the largest employers. And being able to benefit an artisan is also impacting many other parameters. For example, preserving cultural heritage, preserving and promoting eco-friendly materials, because it's all naturally sourced, locally made, things like that. So I then took part in a business plan competition organized by NABARD, which I was thankful to have won. And this was for rural livelihoods. And so that's how I got started. This is back in towards the end of 2013. And like many other groups, the initial focus, like many other groups in the craft sector, the initial focus was to focus on design and marketing to make sure that traditional craft skills are keeping pace with evolving customer and consumer preferences and the way markets are evolving. But as I delve deeper into who are the other communities who could get benefited from crafts, because there was a lot of skill training that was happening around the country, but they were targeted pretty much at youth and maybe some programs at women. But there were a lot of communities who did not have access to any form of skill training. For example, persons with intellectual disability, or women rehabilitated from domestic violence or from trafficking, or even urban, rural, tribal women who have a very limited bandwidth in a day when they can work. It's only about 4 to 5 hours after they've completed their homework, all their housework, and then they need proximity to that center. It has to be, in a close to where they live. So, looking at all of that, our model, the craftsman's model, evolved from working only with traditional artisans, whom we were supporting with design and marketing, to working with communities who did not have access to other forms of skill training. And not to reinvent the wheel, we also decided why not work in partnership with other organizations? Why start our own centers? So, now it's been 6 years, and there are a couple of centers that we actually had to take up because the partner organization couldn't continue. So, we have these 2 centers that we run by ourselves in Hyderabad. But otherwise, we've got 15 centers that we run in partnership across in and around Bangalore and Bengal as well. So we're in these 3 locations. It's a wide range of skills. And another layer of impact that we were able to add is that we work on a lot of upcycling and recycling. So we convert temple flowers into holy colors. We convert paper dust, which is collected from cardboard mills, into a range of products for festive hampers. Fabric discards, silk thread discards, flex banners, single-use plastic, you name it. We do a lot of upcycling, recycling as a way to also, basically have an environmental impact in addition to the livelihood impact that we have. So today at our centers, we mobilize those, particularly women, and like I said, the unskilled. They could be persons with intellectual disability. Whoever is interested in earning a livelihood through crafts. So we mobilize them, we train them, we customize the skill level in terms of the technicality to suit the profile of the beneficiaries. And then we do the design development, set up the group enterprises, and we do the marketing as well. So it is an end-to-end solution in the craft sector. Anirban, stop me at any time or give me a sign if you think I've taken time. And so I think for us that's been the challenge. If you look at skill training, you can actually work with the community, do the skill training batches, and you can move on, right? As long as I suppose you've tied up for placements, etc. But in livelihood, the buck stops here. No matter what, whether there is demand or no demand, we are responsible now for the communities, and we are responsible for them earning an income and feeding their families. So we every year we work with around 600 to 700 beneficiaries. And approximately 500 of them need to earn income from us on a monthly basis. So that's a large number. With COVID, many of our centers are closed, and they will continue to stay closed for some time because persons with intellectual disability, for example, are a high-risk category and they cannot come to the center. But we were able to open up some of our centers where we've got women artisans. And the silver lining has been that.
And actually, we will be hearing from you specifically on this, that how you are handling it.
Sure. Then I'll stop for now and say that that's craftism.
So I'll quickly move to Ketan. Ketan, if you could take us through your journey and talk more about your initiative.
Thank you, Anirban, for this opportunity, and thank you, Ms. Mayura, for giving us this wonderful panelist. Inir and I have been great friends. Good to connect again after a long time. So thank you for that also. I started this journey of fuel at a very young age, probably at the age of 19, and when I feel that age now, I really feel again I should be 19. But I started young, and it was for a very simple thought that how you can create awareness among students about educational opportunities. And reason behind doing that was I came from a village after doing my high school and came to a city like Pune, and I thought that I should be aware about all the information, and I missed certain opportunities in the process. That triggered me, and that was not the time of digital era, so I wrote a book on 50 entrance exams that a young student of rural India can give. And that time, Dr. Kalam was very fond of young children, so I gave the booklet, sent the book by post, and he appreciated it, and that's how the journey began and the story began of Fuel. And it's Friends Union for Energizing Lives. It's a group of friends coming together to solve the challenges for uh, rural youth. Over a period of this journey, from career counseling, the organization has evolved to implement scholarship program. Then after that, we realized that scholarship and counseling will not be useful enough because people will drop out from higher education streams. So why not have vocational training? After realizing doing vocational training for a long time, the wages were not increasing that much. So why not have a futuristic kind of training to the youth coming from these rural towns? And that's how we have gone with a program called Future Skills, and where we implement this livelihood training to youth coming from rural India into cities. And the journey has been quite inspirational in the process. Learned a lot of things of what corporate India is looking for opportunities, how we can make those opportunities available to youth, provide them training in areas like artificial intelligence, IoT, digital marketing, which are the future job areas, connect them through web portals like LinkedIn, Naukri, and so on to provide them those jobs that are essential, mentor them, and counsel them for their further journey. Over a decade of work, almost present in 14 states now, working with army schools across India, then having good connects with the industries, CSR initiative, thanks to the law which came in 2014. It started funding these initiatives, and it has been a good journey to help youth of India. Primarily, we work in the domain of career counseling, skill development, and scholarships. That has been the portray. And the USP of the organization is we have delivered the implementation. We have gone at the grassroots and delivered that. So that has been one of our USP, and that's how the journey began. So I'll pause here for this moment.
Fantastic. What a journey it is. Uh, so I would now move on to Pooja. Could we hear your journey?
Yeah, so I started as a student entrepreneur. So this Organico was my college project. I back in 2017, when I was in my master's degree, I was looking for an idea to like finish my do my thesis, and my reason was very simple, that I wanted to impact a community. I wanted to create job opportunity for someone, and that time I was looking for some innovative ideas and innovative community who actually need. So accidentally I read an article about this company based in Switzerland who were doing donkey milk farming and giving milk to infant. I thought, yeah, this is something I really want to try in India. Actually, I want to try for myself. And that time I had no idea that if this will be successful, or I will take this forward after my college or not. But in 2017, finally, luckily, in Solapur, I started my project with 14 donkey owner communities. They were migrated from Andhra Pradesh, and when I was doing research, when I was doing my thesis, I got to know that they have stable not do not have stable livelihood opportunity. When monsoon came, they left with the seasonal employment. They left not only 4 to 5 months they work, and after उनके पास कोई job opportunity नहीं होती है. At the same time, the people who own donkey, they were earning around 200 rupees, 300 rupees working at construction sites and brick lanes. So and started my thesis, and this donkey milk in India costs 2,000 rupees a liter. So people who own donkeys, they were not aware. I thought, why not just connect both of them? Why not create awareness in community about donkey milk, and in some way they can also earn. And that's how I started, with 14 donkey owner community. We are basically a social enterprise creating livelihood opportunity for them by utilizing donkey milk to make skincare products. The benefit of donkey milk is that it contains natural anti-aging component, and it has some medicinal properties. Now, people who who is like lactose intolerance, or people with allergic to people with digestive issues. Now, donkey milk is good for infant, and South India people are actually consuming. Even in European countries, people are consuming, but still a very new concept. Still, like unknown segment. People are not aware. And it's been 2 years since I started. Now we are based in New Delhi. We are working with donkey owner community in Delhi NCR, in Dasna. One project we started in Maharashtra. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Thank you for making us understand a new paradigm altogether. A lot of people haven't heard, I hadn't heard before, about this before listening it from you. I need all over to you, your journey.
I'll try and be as brief as possible. So the entire premise of setting up, so I'm a city-bred brat, but during college and subsequently what disturbed a lot out of me, and I come from a minority community, what disturbed a lot of me was being in the city of Bombay, having experienced communal violence first in '93 and then subsequently 2001. Why do people kill and believe it's righteous to kill? And if anybody studies communal violence, correct, people tend to relish in the violence that is actually being taking place. And this entire journey that has unfolded since, what I've realized is the lack of opportunities, the lack of, when people are frustrated and not able to lead their lives because of lack of livelihoods, somebody will come and then tell you that outsider who belongs to a different religion, different caste, different region, different gender is the reason for your lack of livelihoods. And hence, if you study the actual the harmony in India, correct, or the growing levels of disharmony is directly proportional to the amount of unemployment or underemployment within India. So, understanding that, I realized that we have to create livelihoods, but livelihoods are very complex, correct? And as I said, I was a city-bred person. Till now, I speak every language in India as long as it is English. So I realized that there is a need for livelihoods, more specifically in villages. Towards that, when we study, there are three engines of livelihood creation. You can either do agriculture, but that's one of the biggest challenges in India, with the average land holding around 1 to 1.5 acre. Just too many people involved in agriculture. In manufacturing, it's just too expensive to create any jobs in manufacturing. Of course, India has very complex laws with regards to labor, with regards to land acquisition and infrastructure setup. The service industry is relatively easier to set up. In fact, a recent study has shown that a million rupees of if it's spent, can create 90 livelihoods within the tourism sector as compared to only around 30 odd in the manufacturing sector. Correct. So you're getting a bigger bang for the buck. So being a Goan, of course, tourism appealed to me. But when you study tourism, tourism has also been known, besides to become a great economic multiplier, also is been known to exploit communities culturally, environmentally, socially, very, very badly. So if you look at predominantly tourism destinations, not only within India but also across the world, local communities tend to be displaced, foreign cultures and habits tend to be enforced upon this, and of course there are huge environmental disasters. So the entire premise is, how do we create livelihoods within villages using the mechanism of tourism? We started working with a concept known as community-based tourism. So how do we work with village councils or gram panchayats and help the women and youth set up their existing gram panchayats as a hospitality center, which they own, manage and run. This was the initial setup, and the idea was to always create livelihoods on scale. So our dream is to work with creating 1 million livelihoods across India. Currently, we are working with 16 gram panchayats in different states across India. We are now going to be expanding soon to a network around, so this year it's going to be 25, in the next 5 years it's going to be 50, and then we're looking to replicate it to different mechanisms. So the idea is to create a network of villages across India where the hospitality services are owned by women and youth. So what does it mean for people? It means that you can come to a village and have authentic stories. I mean, one of the big differences that for most clients, we do not have enough of stories to put on our Instagram or Facebook or even to tell our friends. And villages are the best environment to be able to do so. In these villages, besides ensuring safety and hygiene, it's all about getting the villagers to talk about their own stories, be it stories of culture, be it stories of craft, be it stories of cuisine. And that's in fact surprisingly coming across, correct, where the past clients are telling us the recipes that they've learned from the women in the villages is actually what's helping them during the lockdown period over here. Stories about nature, stories about how plants are used for medicinal purposes, stories about God, stories about life in general, correct? And when kids come and say that when school kids from cities go to villages and spend time with tribal kids, and at the end of it all, tell each other, dude, I didn't know school to be simple. By just staying in a house which has got a cow dung floor and maybe a single bulb, realizing the beauty of the entire thing. So grassroots helps villagers set up these villages as hospitality enterprises. We then connect them to markets. We currently run 3 verticals. One is tourism, where people can come in for a holiday. Schools and colleges is the next vertical, where people come for an education program, and we run a lot of corporate training programs. All of these services are provided by villagers themselves in this network across India that we have.
Great. Thanks, Aini. So, taking the discussion to the next level, I think in the present context, when we're talking of several challenges that is coming to each one of us, given the COVID crisis, one of the things that I have observed, and this is our personal experience in Dhiti as well, is that a lot of the reverse migration which is happening, and then again reverse migration which is happening, is creating a lot of imbalance in the livelihoods. Set whatever was in its place, that is getting a bit out of the shape which it was initially in. Which is good as well as bad, because it's unsettling, but there's a scope of doing a lot of new things. What I would like to know from each one of you is how are you tackling the crisis right now, as well as also looking at things like the communities that you are working with. How are you handling that? The livelihood issues that you're facing there, how are you handling that? So if I could put it across to Pooja. Pooja, if you could share, you've been closely working with donkey farmers community. How has been your experience and during this pandemic?
Okay, yeah. So actually, COVID has impacted our model a lot, because we were working with the people who migrated from different places in UP, Bihar, or South, but now they are going back to their villages, going back to their places. So, like one of the challenge we are right now facing in how to stop this migration, how to ask them to stay with us, to continue working with the same model and all. At the same time, this is also a difficult situation for us to go into the community, because there's a risk associated with going back, my team and all. So, and there are people who have already left to their villages, but there are some who like right now associated with us still. We are procuring milk and all. Our one of the most important factor we are is taking care of the health and hygiene in community, because this is the only way we can go and work, and they can also associate with us and continue working. So we have actually changed our model, refined our model of the earlier model was that taking milk from them and just pressurizing and coming up with a different process. But right now we have added a one more one of the major component, that is health and hygiene. There are others aspect, and I believe that the migrant labor who have managed to return and will not be able to go back or come back immediately. So right now the main focus we have on the relief and rehabilitation facility to the communities, how we can tackle that, how we can provide them the livelihood opportunity where they are. So right now, how we can connect them. And there are people who have already left to their villages. There are people who have now in their communities still working with us. We are working. It's like in March only we stopped. Our model was stopped completely because of that's immediate lockdown, and in April recently we started moving forward. Slowly we are going back to the community. Slowly we are again mobilizing. So the mobilization is first tasks we started recently last month, where the people who are still in community, asking them to be with us and continue the flow of the work we were doing earlier. So yeah.
Okay. Ketan, how are you dealing with this the crisis, and how are the different stakeholders responding, your stakeholders responding to this?
I think it was a very difficult situation in terms of collaborating for online learning. I think everybody at the start of the COVID were a little hesitant that whether online training will work. But it has some positives and negatives, which we have figured out over a period of 1 quarter now, you can say. One of the things, it puts immense pressure on the trainer to deliver with the quality, because you are being watched on Facebook, you can be watched by the donor, and as well as you can be watched by the parents. So it is a blessing in disguise that the trainer really, we had a lot of pressure on him to deliver in the manner in which the curriculum and in the manner in which he's supposed to deliver. The second one was, of course, having the mobile phones and availability of internet connection, and all that challenges are there. But it is interesting that overall, if you look at the audiences which we are catering, it's more on tier 2, tier 3 cities. Smartphone penetration is quite huge, especially related to the engineering youth who are undergoing futuristic skills and training. So we found that yes, the online training is possible to be delivered. Is it efficient and does it replaces the classroom training? Probably we are too early to comment on that. It will be an adjacent to the classroom training, but it can't be totally replacement. That also we realize with the limitation. So overall, adopting to online training has helped us a lot. Thanks to some of the global providers like Coursera or LinkedIn Learning, Microsoft have come up with a lot of free programs for the youth. So access to such opportunities have increased, and that has also impacted us. We collaborated with NASCOM Future Skills platform also, thereby getting industry volunteers through virtual volunteering. I think that is also possible due to COVID situation. Otherwise, doing volunteering physically was quite difficult considering their time and so on. But of course, one important drawback which I found was we were replacing that human touch which was there. So maybe we don't know the pulse of his or her life, what is going through. We work with mechanics, with a large number of mechanics of two-wheeler and four-wheelers under one of our program. And I found that the well-being of that family and livelihood was more important than giving any training at this moment of time. Giving the business or customer was not at all possible. So there we found a lot of challenges. So that is what I wanted to share.
And if I could just ask one more thing, I was very inquisitive. So overall, did you see an increase in intent or inquiries about skill training, or that also flattened a bit?
Depends on the community which you work on. Students' appetite was more because placements where cycle was not going to happen soon. So there was only way was to upgrade certification. But community like mechanics or stakeholders like mechanics were very disturbed because they had no work in their hand. So whatever you train them, at the end of the day, work has to be there to earn their livelihood. So that was a challenge we faced.
Thanks so much, Ketan. I need tourism sector has been the talk of the town for all the reasons. What were your experiences and of the sector in at large? What
This is the first time we've seen demand outstrip supply. Correct, over here there is a huge demand, specifically from city people wanting to travel to villages and any place which is COVID free. Correct, or at least in beautiful environments. There's a huge demand for the entire. However, currently there are three questions, correct, that we currently have to face. So the amongst the worst affected is the hospitality industry. So first, right now it's illegal in most parts of India. So government will not allow it, or if it allows it, it does so with huge restrictions. So the three dilemmas are: first, it's illegal. Number two, the communities that we work with right now have across our villages, across states, have actually passed Gram Panchayat resolutions, basically saying that outsiders are not welcome inside, and that's rightfully done so. While cities can claim that listen, there are 20,000 ICU beds, but we need 25,000 ICU beds. In villages, there is zero ICU beds. Doctors are very helpful, correct, but there is no infrastructure in rural India, and more so per se, I could be wrong, but this disease still tend to be centered around urban India. So any client who travels from here to there has a potential of transmitting disease and then subsequently blowing up out of proportion. So the villagers have to consent. So villagers is the second challenge. The third challenge is actually a moral challenge, which is, do you want to allow for this interaction, knowing the fact that it can blow up in a very, very negative way? We set up grassroots to create livelihoods, but livelihoods comes only the fact that there is life and life can actually persist. So these are the three dilemmas that we as grassroots currently are grappling with. During this entire time, however, we've done some very, very interesting things right now. So just to kind of share with you in terms of a documentation of, so one of our partners has studied it. So this is in one district in Maharashtra. 90,000 people have come back in 6 blocks. Out of the 90,000 people who have come back, 15 to 20% of these people will not want to go back. That's what they've categorically stated. 50% of the people are directly saying we are coming back to cities. The moment it opens, or we can get some work or the other. But you've got a good 15-20% of people who have come back who says that, boss, I've done with it. Like they've literally, the city people have thrown us out and there is no love over there. I am not going back. The reason why we've had migration is because the economies in villages were not able to help people survive in whatever opportunities they were not there. It's most of the villagers, there are few aspirational people who move out because of a particular skill set or want to drive something, but most of the time it's because there is nothing within, hence you're forced to move out. Now, in the villages, and surprisingly, if you study a COVID-based economy, it's only rural India and the rural economies which have actually taken India forward in whatever GDP growth that we've currently been able to sustain. But that with more people coming inside is not going to be able to absorb this. What we currently need is, and maybe there can be opportunities with regards to this agricultural reforms, with regards to ICT and things like that, or maybe even reskilling, correct? But that's something that needs to be done. We have, as part of our relief work, the first thing we've done is been able to get COVID relief translated into various languages and been able to actually reach out to our villages. Our villages, some of them have network, many of them do not have network. So once in a week, they will come to a particular place and get some mobile network. Right? So we've ensured that they have been able to get how do you identify and how do you subsequently prevent COVID in local languages, number one. With migration coming inside, some villages have actually requested. So in villages we have tents, so campsites that we utilize to host clients. These were used to host people for isolation centers. So when people are coming back, because they couldn't directly stay in a village upfront, correct? So they had to be isolated for 2 weeks. Villagers used these tents to ensure that people had shelter, but also there was social distancing and keeping outside for that entire thing. Of course, there is, while the government has ensured that there is ration available in rice or wheat, anybody, including us, would like some lentils or spices, correct, which is not necessarily available. And people, because the migration season has kind of come down, so that was not there. So we've ensured that there has been able to get some additional ration kits inside. And just before June, we've also worked with communities across to ensure that they've been able to get grain. See, what has happened is a normal trend prior to March, communities will tend to migrate, work for 15 days to a couple of months, get some additional money from that work. That additional money will then be utilized to buy farm inputs for the main season, which is called as the Kharif season. So they will buy seeds and fertilizers and things like that, which will then be utilized in June, July onwards. However, when they've come back, what has resulted in is whatever grains that they currently have, that itself has been had to be utilized for food. So their seed stocks have come drastically down, and they've not had the money to be able to buy seeds. So we've also been working on with communities to ensure that seeds have been able to be purchased. Yeah, so that's the entire thing. Going forward, this is a huge dilemma, correct? But we also believe that tourism is also a great mechanism.
I'll come back to on going forward because that's the next question that I'll be asking. So could I just hear Mayura before we get into that aspect? Yeah. So Mayura, all yours.
Sure.
You've been working with urban and rural communities, so I wanted to hear from you.
So we actually work with, broadly 3-4 different communities. So persons with intellectual disability, they are at a high risk category, and therefore they are not allowed to come to the centers. those centers are closed, and we have been arranging for ration kits for all of them from April onwards. So this is a situation we see continuing till maybe September at least, and hopefully then we'll see, the curve reversing or, moving downwards. Then we work with women who, are, some of them are being rehabilitated from trafficking, domestic violence, and they are in these residential centers. So in those centers, initially for about a month or so, we had to close it down close down uh, the work because we couldn't get access to raw materials. The trainers couldn't get to the center. The designers couldn't get there. But of course, we have to raise relief kits and, make sure that there's enough there to obviously feed and, keep the women sort of surviving. But now those centers have opened up, and there we started producing masks and other related products, related to health and hygiene. Similarly, women who are from rural or urban areas and were coming to our center, we were again able to open up those centers from mid-April onwards, and they again are making masks and sanitizer pouches, and now there's a whole Rakhi line and things like that. And the other category, of course, is traditional artisans. The traditional artisans never stopped working, but they were badly hit. They're sitting on huge amounts of unsold inventory. Typically, they would build a lot of inventory during the summer, and then they would immediately have an outlet, through craft melas events, but all of those are cancelled. Retailers are hit, and therefore they are not buying. So the silver lining for the craft sector has been if you have the capability to sell online. A lot of the e-commerce players who are specializing in crafts have actually doubled their income this quarter compared to last year the same quarter. And in fact, Craftsman had a similar experience because typically this is a slow quarter for crafts. This is the time when you do a lot of designing, you do a lot of, sampling, etc. for the rest of the year. But if we were able to hit the ground running in terms of making products that were immediately relevant. So like I was mentioning, health and hygiene, but also we found that with work from home, people were looking to buy more products for home, right? Whether it's, setting up, work desks at home, whether it is realizing that, okay, they want to, spend more on beautifying their homes. And also with social distancing and being away from loved ones, people are also buying gifting items. And, sort of, you can't share a celebration in person, but you'd like to, send a token of love. So that has been a silver lining for sure, but it's not impacting everybody, right? Huge communities are still under duress. There is huge amounts of unsold inventory because not everything can be moved online. There are, larger artifacts and things that you just cannot ship. There are delicate items, etc. that, again, they would, normally wait for those craft melas events. All of those are cancelled. And we are making a very limited range of products. A few months down the line, if the market changes, and plus people are not celebrating festivals and events and things like that, I actually foresee that this initial euphoria could go either way. Right now, at this point, we have no way of knowing what the future holds, and I think that is so unsettling.
In fact, given our experience of working with rural communities and working with entrepreneurs in rural communities, one of the things that we realized during this crisis is that we talk a lot about livelihoods and creating, but one of the things that we see is that traditionally the resilience capital of the rural folks is much higher than actually the urban populace, urban poor. So we really saw that the ability of them to wade through this for a period of 3 months and maintaining it. However, right now the scenario is now going down because their resilience is now starting to show, and also working capital issues are now creating larger problems. Taking this conversation then towards the future. So, what do you all look at? You've encountered the challenges already, but things are also changing. The new normal is going to be pretty different is something that everybody is expecting. How are you building for that? How are you looking at the future? What kind of model changes or changes in strategies that you have? If you could share those with us. I will go back to Ainir because I had stopped him. So Ainir, if you could just continue from where I had to.
Yeah. Thanks, Anirban. So what for we as grassroots see, and this is also with amongst the industry leaders, we got a huge surge in need for domestic travel. Number one, people are not going to be traveling abroad for whatever reason, correct? But they're also fed up being locked in their homes, and people will see a huge surge in domestic travel, specifically where families sit down in a vehicle, either their own or a hired vehicle, driving out to a short distance away from cities. You will see a huge surge in this entire aspect. Now, to cater to this surge is when you can actually prepare communities to be able to address this. Of course, within being able to come within the norms of safety, correct, and health and safety to ensure that entire aspect over there. But what to understand right now, this has been the largest migration and distress migration that we have seen, even greater than the partition, and has resulted in a lot of hurt of people. We believe that tourism is a mechanism of at least healing some of this hurt and building trust in the world forward. And it is very, very important as we go forward towards this entire aspect. So we're going to be investing a lot, making sure that domestic travel is going to go up, of course. Corporate training, surprisingly, is not going to be a big this, because most corporates are going to be online right now. So whenever we do any training program, it's going to be, boss, आप online बताओ, हम लोग बस गांव में ट्रेनिंग देते हैं, ऑनलाइन नहीं कर सकते आप लोग.
Pocket भी खाली हो गया है.
Corporate भी खाली, yes, the pockets are going to be empty, correct? But the other thing that I see a huge focus and is going to be in, we will have to look at establishing either a form of a universal basic income mechanism, or we'll have to ensure huge levels of wage work. The government has taken some positive steps towards this with regards to increasing the Narega budgets, but we've got to understand. So in Maharashtra, it's 180 rupees a day, correct? For people who have returned back, that is not sufficient. For people who are staying there as well, 180 rupees a day for a minimum of 100 days is not sufficient. We've got to look at new forms of where do we use this wage for, correct? And maybe use some of Pune is a great example. In fact, I think if I'm not mistaken, Ketan, in the early 1900s, Aga Khan had ensured the creation of the palace over there. Not because he wanted a huge thing for himself, but because he realized there was a drought in the entire Pune-Satara region, and says that people can at least come over here and build it, correct? And he sponsored that entire thing, a visionary, of course, over there. Maybe we'll have to look at creating social public structures, correct, as a part of this entire aspect, as a way forward.
Great, thanks. And I think I also had a discussion with Prakash Sangam a few days back, and he was also talking about the homestays industry actually probably going through a surge, would go through a surge, specifically looking at the psychological, of going into larger spaces, specifically in the tourism, from the tourism point of view.
Yeah.
So thanks, Ainir, and I would now like to take to Ketan. Ketan, how is the skill building landscape changing, and what do you think are the changes that you see for the future? You talked about some, but any more that you think?
I think we're going to have some bold reforms there, and online university is going to be in that direction. I think universities need to really start online education. Government has to really give those incentives which are needed, and cancel that license raj which they have for giving that online degrees, which will be very critical in terms of skill development and upgrading the infrastructure related to online. The jobs will also probably shift their sense of virtual working, virtual leadership, and all that will come into place. But I agree with Inir's point. I think universal base income is some of the good priority and ideas, and along with roti, kapda, makan, I think we will need skills, entrepreneurship, and healthcare. I think at the grassroots level, and having a local LinkedIn, not tech based, I am saying, but having a local LinkedIn which solves the problem of jobs and opportunities for the local level without any tech support is something which we really need at the ground to happen. District leadership or district collectors are doing a lot of things through various schemes which they are bringing in, whether it is migration, Manrega, or a lot more. But it's a lot more to do, and people have spent a lot of money in terms of giving it to PM cares, in terms of giving it to philanthropy. But what happens in terms of giving it to people of who need it most? I think the problem of wages which we have, I think which needs to be solved. Maybe we have a decade-old problem, wages versus unemployment, and we've not been able to figure out that. If wages would have not been a problem, probably government would have given money from the helicopters also and thrown the money to everyone. But I think it's not that problem. So wages, which is a problem, which needs to be solved, and the future depends on that. And 55 cities we have, which are the major job creators, what we can say. The rest all what we call now as aspirational districts. I think they need to really show up the employment opportunities. That's the way forward for it, I think. Yeah.
Thanks, Ketan. Pooja, how do you see your sector and how do you see your work changing in future?
Yeah, so in terms of community, so first priority would be like doing the community mobilization again from grassroots level and from starting scratch. And the second, obviously, the COVID had changed the online marketing scenario in our country across the world, and people are going online. So right now, for like us, now we are trying to capture the online market, trying to reach more and more customer. And this is for any startup who recently started online, actually a good platform to sell your product and reach your customer. So right, our priority is to target more customer using online marketing. Also, we are planning now post COVID, we are planning to start a micro entrepreneurship model by promoting women entrepreneurship in community, where we'll be asking the women of the community to do the donkey farming and all. We are planning on that. And yeah, and awareness campaign again we have to start, because obviously like things have changed. And once the COVID will, like with this is although a new lifestyle or new scenario, but we have to change. So we are planning to start a like awareness campaign in community, telling people about the donkey milk. And now we are also planning to expand to the rural areas in Rajasthan and in Maharashtra and Uttarakhand. We are planning to expand and reach more grassroots level communities and try to work with them.
Thanks, Pooja. Thanks, Pooja, for the and on to Mayura. Mayura.
Yeah, I'm conscious of time, so yeah, very quickly. Yeah.
Also, towards the intellectually challenged, you were working with them. How are you looking at taking the work forward with them in beyond this? Yeah.
Okay, so basically, overall for the craft sector, and I'll address that first. I mean, we have seen that there is going to be a shift. At least some portion of what China was manufacturing will shift to India, right? So therefore, if you are manufacturing in India, Make in India can see an impetus. But how do you make crafts now globally competitive? There are challenges there. Not all crafts are ready. Therefore, one has to work on the finishing quality, global standards, etc. Secondly, I think craft skills and artisans who are skilled, uh, their skills can be repurposed to work in other industries, right? And to also look at innovation in crafts to make them more mass scale and to make them more daily use, right? So these are a couple of things that I think we can see happening in the craft sector, and already people are working, especially focusing on innovations in crafts. When it comes to persons with intellectual disability, unfortunately, there's not much we can do, because NIMHANS, which is Asia's largest center for mental health neurosciences, they are our partners as well. And we are trying to now arrange for, we're doing a pilot where we are sending the materials to make the production to homes, right, to the homes of some of our beneficiaries. But it may not be possible for all of them, because, for example, if you look at flowers, right, we collect flowers from temples, but temples are closed and weddings are not happening at the same large scale. Therefore, we don't have access to that raw material itself. And many of them come from far away. So every day there is a pickup van that goes to pick them up. Now, to arrange for raw material every day and then to again, unfortunately, this is a community that's going to be really badly hit. And I see that, maybe for a small group, we might be able to arrange for work from home. But for most of them, it's such a big health, risk that it's only recommended for them to stay at home, and unfortunately, there's not much we can do there.
Thank you, Mayura. In fact, I would also like to share what we are doing at Kriti, given the scenario which has come in. We realized as an organization working across the country that the need for increase in village and township enterprises is something where, that is particularly something that if we are able to augur well, the crisis can be looked into from a very different perspective. So we started looking at reimagining the entire scope of working in rural. So the shortness of given a khadi, or how do we take it beyond that? Taking rural or village enterprises beyond that, and we initiated a program called Seeding Grampreneurs, and looking at how are we going to initiate more grampreneurs at the village and the township level. So, and the narrative is just not about villages, but also townships. So a lot of thought process which is going on is not only work from home, but also work from hometown. So people are going back and they want to do something there. So Kriti has been trying to augur that well. We've also worked with a lot of entrepreneurs in looking at how do they take forward their enterprises beyond this crisis period. So looking at if there are issues of psychological disorders. So we initiated a helpline for women entrepreneurs in the Northeast, because that is a big, totally different level of activity, because we realized that they are at home and even their husbands are at home and things have changed, and they doing business was not as usual. The element of domestic violence increased, the element of the time that they have, work-life balance that they had, everything changed. And as a result of that, a lot of entrepreneurs were going through psychological disorders and psychological problems. And we decided that during this period, we would actually spend time with them and try to be with them during this duration, given our work that we're doing. So I think, yes, and the future lies for us, future lies in the village-based enterprises. And I think the elements from each of your work, I think, are so important to look at village enterprises and reimagining it in a different level. I would like to now open it to the questions that we have received. Okay, so the question for Mayura from Deepak Sharma: what is the level of income the beneficiaries are normally able to earn on a monthly basis? Is it sustainable on a long-term basis?
So, depending on their background, they work anywhere as little as 2 hours to as much as 6 hours in a day. And income varies from around 1,500 rupees to 8,000 rupees a month, which again depends on the number of hours they put in and their skill level. Whether it is sustainable, well, that's where we come in. So we, absorb the risk of, the inventory and the production. And there is a huge focus on marketing and reaching out to different buyers, because that's the only way to assure income. With COVID, obviously, there are huge question marks with so many of our channels, not being accessible for some time. But pre-COVID, it was okay. It was not so much of a challenge. In fact, what was great was to see the aspirations, right? Those who are working 2 hours a day and were shown a path to more income if they can, work more number of hours a day, or they can improve their efficiency. Always aspire to improve and better themselves.
Okay, the next question is to Ketan. Do you think BFSI sector can be an important sector for skilling youth post-COVID? If yes, why and how? Just a second. I think also the admins, if you can unmute the audience for them to ask the questions directly. for a short period of time. Yeah. Ketan, the question for you.
Thanks, Bipasha, for asking that. And when I saw that question, I could relate because if you immediately want to answer it, it will be too early. On one side, yes, BFSI is moderately affected according to NASCOM, various reports in terms of jobs. But on the other side, it is also spoken in the reports that whether it is customer care specialist, net banking facilities being used more, cyber security being one of them, also critical during the post-COVID era, and blockchain as one of the emerging technology coming in. So, uh, to answer it correctly, I think it will be too early to say it will happen the same way it was happening earlier, or it will be difficult to say that it will not happen. But currently, I see that banking operations have opened a lot of positions, especially in terms of customer care and cyber security. So maybe we'll have to tweak a little bit job roles which are suitable to them as per COVID situation, and then work on it. Insurance is also picking up with especially awareness on insurance schemes. So there is a mix of what can happen to the sector, but we are hoping that since it is a moderately affected, it will retain its job proportion which it has been contributing. So that would be my answer.
Great, thanks, Ketan. The next question is, how can we sustain a culture of youth entrepreneurship in India without compromising on values of sustainability and equity? I would like to place it to our young entrepreneur, Pooja. What do you have? What is your take on this?
How? Okay. So, like when I was in my bachelor's degree, I never heard about entrepreneurship or startup ecosystem. And when I entered my master's degree, I like got to know about, okay, there's a term called entrepreneurship, and which is related to starting a business and all. So I believe that to inspire young entrepreneurs or young people to go in entrepreneurship without losing their belief is that promoting entrepreneurship among students, student community, and people, the new who are new to this ecosystem through different course, and also I believe that university plays a very important role in promoting entrepreneurship, and without losing values. Okay, so being an entrepreneur is very challenging, like very, very, very challenging. It's not that you always see the green part of being an entrepreneur. There is ups and downs. You will have your mental health. You do not, although we entrepreneurs do not talk about the mental health thing. So now, like I guess that promoting the values, and all, as well as like telling people about the negative impact as well as positive impact of starting something. There's always a back, one side. There is always a two side of a journey. There's always a two face of any journey. So yeah, I started as a student entrepreneur, and before when I started, I had no idea about what entrepreneurship is, and I believe that yeah. So starting from the university till now, talking about entrepreneurship, talking about this ecosystem will help the young entrepreneurs.
Great. So I think the time is up, and I'm getting signals for that. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, all the panelists, Inir, Pooja, Mayura, and Ketan. It has been a fantastic learning experience for me, from hearing from you and understanding what all of you have done, and also looking at how all of you are looking at taking livelihoods from here, given the realities and in the new normal. I thank Manju for giving me the scope to be a part of this beautiful discussion. Back to you, Manju.
Thank you, Anirban, and thanks a lot for this wonderful discussion that we have had for the last 1 hour. I mean, it's always, as I always say, when this kind of discussion happens, you just don't realize where time goes, right? And though we wouldn't want to pause this conversation here, but unfortunately, we have, taken a time of 1 hour from each of you, including the audiences. So thanks all of you for being here today, for being a part of this conversation, a very important one, because we are not just speaking about just one sector, we're speaking about people and their dignity. And giving people an access to a dignified life is something, a beautiful thing that all of you are doing. And I some of these examples so that more and more people can be engaged in that initiative, and we can take forward this mission, in a more stronger manner. So with that, we will close this episode today. And for next episode on the FACETS of IMPACT, we are going to bring social entrepreneurs in the field of or in the sector of environment. They will be speaking about how they are tackling the environmental challenges in the country. So please stay tuned on our social media pages. The links will be available to you on the chat, and the registrations will open up very soon, probably today evening. Thank you, all of you, for joining us today. Have a wonderful evening. And thanks to my team who has been behind coordinating all of these actions. A lovely evening to all of you, and stay tuned. Bye.
Thank you very much.